So far, we've been passing arguments to methods based on their position. But there is another way to pass arguments called named parameters. With named parameters, we can specify the parameter names when passing arguments to a method instead of relying on their order. This makes the code more readable and easier to maintain, specifically when dealing with methods that have lots of parameters or optional arguments. Hello guys, welcome back. Okay, named arguments allow us to specify the arguments for a method without worrying about the order of parameters in the method's parameter list. We can specify the argument for each parameter by using the parameter name. Let's consider this method. We can call it by sending arguments in a specific order as defined by the method's signature. However, if we don't remember the order of the parameters but know their names, we can send arguments in any order by using named arguments. Named arguments make our code easier to read by identifying what each argument represents. In this example, both first name and last name are strings. Instead of sending arguments based on their position, it makes sense to use named arguments to clarify the two parameters and avoid confusion for anyone reading the code. Okay, we have the flexibility to use both named and positional arguments in a method call. However, there are two important rules we must remember. The first rule is that all named arguments must come after all positional arguments. For instance, if we place a named argument before the positional arguments, we'll encounter an error. The second rule is that if we want to use named arguments before positional arguments, we must ensure that the named arguments are in their correct position. For example, in this specific case, the last name is not used in the correct position based on the method signature. Okay, to use a named argument before a positional argument, we can place the first name argument at its correct position. By doing so, since the first name is now in its correct position, the error will be resolved. Alright, let's dive into VS Code and see named parameters in action. In this example, we calculate the discount based on the price. This method has three parameters. First, let's call the method using positional arguments. Next, let's call it using named arguments. After that, let's print each discount separately. Now let's run the application to see the result. Okay, as you can see, in both types of method calls, we get the same result. Alright, what if we only use the named argument for the silver and golden discounts? Okay, as you can see, it still works. However, if we make the third argument positional, we encounter an error. The reason is that we cannot put a positional argument after a named argument. Alright, now what if we wanna use a named argument before a positional argument? In this case, we must make sure that the named arguments are in their correct position. For example, let's use the price for the first position, golden discount in the second position, and for the silver discount, let's use a positional argument. As you can see, we're using the named arguments before the positional argument without any error. Okay, done. See you soon.